Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And today we're talking about another Melville, Le Doulos, from 1963, which is long before Flic, which we watched the other day.
Yeah, it's about 10 years earlier.
And it stars Jean-Paul Belmondo, and it's another crime film. Le Doulos means the hat, and a title at the start of the film explains this, and it also explains that the hat also means the informant, someone who's a snitch for the police. So it kind of sets up for someone in this film is going to be a snitch. And I think one of the central mystery, I think, of the film is who is it? You know, and it keeps you guessing, it keeps you questioning, I think.
Yes. So tell me, because I got a message from you kind of a third of the way through saying this is so boring, blah, blah, blah. So did you change your mind by the end?
Not really. I wasn't that interested. I was quite bored by it, I must confess. There are things that I did like. I really appreciated how beautiful and expressive the photography is. There's incredible contrast between light and dark in it. Obviously, it's in black and white. And I think that's kind of beautiful. And you were telling me, well, Tarantino loves this, and he's called it a great influence upon him. So maybe think about that. And I can see why he would say that. You know, especially if you look at Reservoir Dogs, one of the central things in Reservoir Dogs is who snitched. You know, and it's only right at the end of that film that it's revealed, after everything's kind of been and gone. But there's also a kind of, I don't know, there's a style to the Frenchness of it all.
Yes.
You know, a kind of lackadaisical, like, different to what I was saying when we watched Flic, and I was saying it's like people are just going through the motions. That's not, I don't think that's exactly the case here. People seem to have more life in them. But still there is a lackadaisical style about the way things happen.
I don't think it's lackadaisical. Lackadaisical is the wrong word because it kind of implies that it's not purposeful and thought through. And I think, you only have to look at the shots in the film, to see how precise everything is. By lackadaisical, I think you mean, or I would agree with you if you meant, that shots linger. Yeah, kind of nothing moves at a quick pace. Yeah, so I
suppose I meant more the characters and the way the characters behave and what you kind of feel that their internal monologues are and their motivations. If you compare it to an American sort of gangster film of the same era or maybe a little bit earlier, they would be more active. I think people would feel like they had more of a drive behind what they were doing. Oh,
yes. I see what you mean.
It's not like the characters in here let things happen. They want things to happen, but they also, I don't know, they kind of linger within the world that they're in, you know?
I find the films kind of sexy and moving and deep. So, this might just be a question of affinities between us. I think it's also a little bit of familiarity. I think it's like one of those things that the more you see and understand someone's style, the greater it becomes, So, for example, I can't help but think of this film in relation to Le Samouraï. And actually, seeing it again today, it reminded me so much of Flic. Yeah, that impassivity that people have, that they're not blurting out their emotions. Nobody has hysterics over anything, right? The kind of widescreen shots which are empty, except for architectural framings of characters who largely seem isolated in the frame. Yeah, these are films that are not peopled by many characters, right? It's usually one person. Right, it might be 3 or 4, but rarely more than that, right? Kind of, within one frame. And so, there is this sense of, what is this world and who are these people, right? And you do get a sense that everyone is kind of somehow alienated. So you think, what are these guys' relationships with the women, right? Is it just a sexual thing? Are they just fulfilling a function, right? And then you think that, and then it surprises you with moments of kind of tenderness or romance that are kind of exhibited via attitudes, right? So at the end of the film, when, Jean-Paul Belmondo's first thought is to get to the phone to reach Fabienne, right? I mean, I thought he's going to call the cops or he's going to call a doctor or no, yeah? What's important to him is this woman who he left and he used, and you're not too clear. Yeah, you get the sense that he's manipulating her, and then there's something kind of deep under that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
On the other hand, the way he treats Therese.
Yes, well, but again, you get the feeling that, like, in a way, this is all kind of very stylized and very movie-like, right? I mean, these are not three-dimensional characters with a past, or they are kind of movie ideas, really. So of course, what's important in this world is these women have snitched, and actually the fact that they've snitched, means that it's quite okay to kind of, put them in a car and throw them off a cliff, right? So there's a different kind of code of honor amongst these men, and kind of in terms of, what's permissible and what's not permissible, and actually what ends up making a hero of the Jean-Paul Belmondo character is that he's loyal.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's interesting that I kind of feel like there's no clear bad guy in the film, unless I suppose you could say Therese, because she just snitches and that's kind of her whole thing. But out of the kind of hardened criminal types you would expect, kind of villain, hero, sort of, and actually by the time you get to the last sort of 15 minutes from the end of the film, everything looks like it's being wrapped up.
Yes.
And then it's just this uncomfortable loose end that he's paid this guy to kill him, and oh no, he's still out there.
Yes.
And then I think that gets you into a kind of classic criminal film noir ending where no matter what, everything is doomed and everyone has to die.
I love the fatalism of it all. Yeah. But I also love the different twists and plot turns, and so for example, at the end when Serge Reggiani explains why he killed the guy who was handling the jewels at the beginning of the film, I find it moving. So he only killed because the guy turned around and saw him with the gun pointed at him. Yeah, and you don't do that to a friend. You don't point a gun at a friend. So the only way out for him morally was actually to kill him, right? I thought that was like, the film is full of moments like that, which actually for some reason moved me. Yeah, that there is kind of like this code of honor, of friendship, of these people are leading their lives according to a code, and one that they know they'll lose, right? Because there's also that lovely bit of dialogue with Jean-Paul Belmondo where he says, in our business, you either end up in the poorhouse or dead or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So, they're characters with no way out anyway. It's just a question of how soon they'll end up that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but still, he has a kind of cheeky smile on his face, somehow. There's something about Jean-Paul Belmondo. He always seems to have that about him.
He's terrific, but, the person who most impressed me this time is Serge Reggiani, who plays Maurice, I think.
Yeah, the kind of, I suppose, main criminal, if you like, in the film.
Yeah, and I have an odd relationship to him because, he's someone who I saw as a young boy already very old. So it's kind of weird for me to see him now younger than I am. Yeah. So for example, there was that scene where they were going to go to burgle that house, to crack that safe. And they go on the metro, which apart from it just being lovely to see the Paris metro in 1962 or, whenever it was filmed, the camera then lingers on their shoes. Yeah, and those shoes are very much like, I forget what they're called now, but, those basketball shoes that cool kids now wear, right?
Sneakers.
Sneakers, yeah. But they have a name. They're kind of like basketball sneakers. Anyway, there's some significance that I couldn't read into that. Yeah, that, they were sneakers, but, the camera kind of moving in close on them is something that, yeah, why is the film bringing you attention to this type of shoe? Presumably because it's completely different than what they normally wear, which is like suits and hats and fedoras and, you know, overcoats and so on.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought he was marvelous, really. Yeah, so kind of charismatic. I mean, the thing about this film is that, I mean, we're used to seeing Belmondo now, yeah? But, you know, kind of Belmondo was somebody who wasn't considered typically attractive, yeah? There's something odd about his face, yeah? You know, the long face, the nose, and, you know, and yet obviously he's very charismatic, yeah? And actually very sexy. And there's something about Serge Reggiani as well, yeah? You know, that like he's not kind of conventionally attractive, but he's very charismatic. And I think he's very, very good in this, yeah? Kind of, he draws you in. He's very minimalist in what he does. Which suits the film.
Was he a big star, Reggiani? Because he strikes me as a character actor type.
Well, he was a character actor who was a star, though. You know, he's brilliant in a Jacques Becker film with Simone Signoret called Casque d'Or, right? And then I think his career, you know, went through a kind of a trough in the 50s, you know, but then from the 60s onwards, you begin to see him crop up in all kinds of things, sometimes in starring roles, sometimes in supporting roles. He wasn't a star of the magnitude of a Delon or a Belmondo or a Gabin or anyone like that, you know, but he was like extremely famous as a
would he be like an Edward G. Robinson, you know, like the best known sort of character actor going?
The thing about Edward G. Robinson is that Edward G. Robinson was a real star, like Bogart or Betty Davis. He had entire films built around him. He was huge box office. Where I don't think Reggiani was like that, but certainly kind of in terms of the type of characters he played, there are similarities.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about, and I think there's a kind of look. He's kind of squat, round faced, kind of etched in his face. You know, I mean, I don't know what he looked like when he was younger, but by the time he's in this, he has that kind of weathered look to him in this.
Yes,
and I think he's actually quite empathetic. You know?
Yes,
I mean, there's a thing in this where you can tell people care for each other.
Yes,
and so there's a kind of contradiction in a sense between, on the one hand, there's no honour among thieves, and everyone is suspicious of each other. But still, they know each other. They have affection for each other. The Jean-Paul Belmondo character is friends with a police officer.
Yes,
you know, and that's what makes people suspicious of him.
Yes, and the film, the reason why they're often termed existentialist, these films of Melville, is not because it's almost like the frame alone, the way they're framed in the image, makes them alone or lonely or cut off or behind the screen. Yeah. It's also that the films take on this idea of responsibility. Yeah. What is it to be a good person in the world? You know, you are your actions and you always have a choice. Yeah. That's kind of like, you know, part of the tenets of existentialism, at least according to Sartre, right? You are responsible for what you do. Yeah. And you always have a choice and you have free will. So how do you exercise that? And I think what you have in these films is, you know, all of these attempts by all of these people to actually do the right thing, right? Like, yeah, the right thing according to this kind of code of honor of like these thieves, right? You don't squeal. Yeah, you don't kind of put your friends in danger. You don't, so there's all these things about, if somebody kills your girlfriend, you go after them, right? Like, or you're not fulfilling your duty. Yeah, it's a kind of a weird code of honor. Well, not so weird. It's actually kind of, you know, very explicitly spelled out, so that actually you know why people have done or will do something, right? Kind of, and actually it's a very interesting thing because, you know, it all revolves in the film around past actions. Yeah, these are all things that have happened before that lead these characters to do something now. Yeah, that kind of, you know. So actually, this series of actions,
you can't outrun your past.
Yes. So, you know, it's a mood film, isn't it? You know, it really is. Yeah, so
Yeah, maybe that's why I couldn't get into it as well, because I thought I can only handle so much Frenchness in like the space of 2 days. I just need to space out the existentialism.
the film is very understated throughout. Yeah, kind of, you know, the
Yeah.
significant. There's no screaming around, right, about any of it.
No, it's true. Even when Reggiani realizes that he's about to get Belmondo killed, and he says, "Give me your car keys." Again, it's kind of quiet. He doesn't say why, and it's not rushed. And he even takes a moment to look back at the guy before he leaves. It's not hectic at any point. I won't be rushed.
And actually, I like the way that the film leads you through these corridors. There are key flashbacks in the film that rework the story for you. Yeah, and kind of and make sense of certain things, because, you know, so for example, the bit in the film where, you know, you see somebody unearthing the jewels and the money, yeah, where Maurice had left them. I thought it was Maurice, right? And then actually, because the camera doesn't show you the face for so long, you think, well, it can't be Maurice, right? It has to be somebody else, right? And then you think, how did they get the information? And I think the film is ethical in that it tells you everything. It doesn't cheat. Yeah, it lets you know exactly how everything got to be the way that it is. But it doesn't always tell it to you at the time you want to know it. Yeah?
No, exactly. And those flashbacks do flesh things out.
Yeah.
I could see how the mystery is kind of built up and developed, and the questions that it's asking you. The film isn't being unfair about those, and they are interesting. But I must say, I didn't care. I didn't care about the people.
Let me find something for you.
Mind you, I thought it's quite nifty that Therese. I think she's supposed to be like, she's the central snitch. I think if there's one Le Doulos in this, it's her. And I thought that was clever, because women don't wear hats in this. Everyone else has got a hat on, all the men.
I wanted to find. Wiki has a 1964 review of the film when it was released in the New York Times. And it says, so the New York Times is very critical. It calls the movie tiresome and excessively talkative, feels it's cluttered with confusing references to irrelevant events, and considers the movie pseudo-intellectual and superficial. There's not much to recommend the picture, which is one of those feeble attempts to be philosophical and mordant about crime as a chosen career. Jean-Pierre Melville, who wrote and directed it, has so many scenes of mere conversation running through it, so many scenes in which plot is played in talk, that one wonders why his people need firearms. They can talk one another to death. I think it's very wrong, actually, though I can see some aspects of it, but I think it's very wrong. I mean, I don't think the characters talk very much, actually.
What that review says about the characters, or the film philosophizing about crime as a career, if that's done through dialogue, I don't see that. The characters talk an awful lot, I think, about the kind of mechanics of what's actually happening. You know, they question each other. What were you doing there? Do you know this person? Who gave you this information? All that kind of stuff. It's talking in that sense, I think. I mean, there's that central scene which I really liked, actually, in the police station where Belmondo's being questioned by two cops. And I think it's all done in one take. And it rotates and moves around the room, and Belmondo's being asked all these questions and kind of dodging things, and then he will move and the camera will follow him, and then the other characters will catch up with him again, and there's this constant thing of, in that scene, like of attempted escape, but he can't. He'll end up sandwiched between these two officers again and again, which I really liked.
The other thing that I don't agree with is where it says that the scenes are mere conversations running through it, which implies, you know, that the mise-en-scène, or that it has no mise-en-scène, or that the mise-en-scène is somehow lacking or trifling. And I do actually think, you know, that the images are really so precise, right? I mean, one of the things that fascinates me about these films of Melville's in the 60s is that he uses widescreen, and how he breaks up the screen. The image does create the sense of people walking through empty spaces that are nonetheless kind of framed for you. So there's always that geometry in the way that the scene, you know, that the image is broken up, either through a staircase, or as we saw in on flic, through glass, through offices, through, kind of seeing through windows. I mean, in this one, for example, there's that beautiful shot of Reggiani in the rain, kind of, trying to prevent, the murder that he set up. And the camera kind of just lingers. And what you have in that image is really, you're seeing it through the window of the car, and you're not seeing it fully because it's raining. And yet kind of the camera's lingering on that mood, of you kind of, not seeing, and these spaces being kind of created where you can only partially see. I was very fascinated by that because there's a very famous shot in The Samurai which is just like that. And also there are other parallels, the looking into the mirror, right? It's so interesting because the film begins with Reggiani going into this farmhouse, looking into this mirror which is broken, and seeing his image in it. So like, kind of his image is kind of a frame within a frame of this reflection, that is nonetheless broken. And then the last image in the film is Jean-Paul Belmondo, or it's, I don't know, it might not be the last image in the film, but it's certainly an image near the end of the film. Jean-Paul Belmondo looking in the mirror as well. And this time the mirror is a sun. It's a sun shape. Where he is fully kind of reflected in that. I thought, I mean, I haven't studied these films. I think this is only the second time I've seen it. And the first time was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But, it almost makes you want to study it. Kind of, I think, there's so many, to me, really beautiful things in it. That kind of you want to explore further.
The royal you. I thought it was all right, but I wasn't bowled over by it, and I was a bit bored. And I'm glad it looked so beautiful. That really helped. I think it is shot beautifully, and it seems to have been preserved and transferred beautifully as well, because it was incredible quality.
It was a gorgeous print.
It looked gorgeous, and that was nice.
Does this mean that we're not going to be seeing?
No, I'm happy to see the other Melvilles.
Okay, good.
This was the one I thought we weren't going to watch.
Yes,
but and we have now. And
the only reason why I chose it was just because I'd worked all morning. My head was dizzy, and 98 minutes seemed more attractive than 2 hours and 40.
108 minutes actually. It's 10 minutes longer than you said. You lied.
Sorry, I made a mistake. But we really must. I would love to talk about Army of Shadows with you. Actually, I think it's really one of the great masterpieces of the cinema.
We'll do the other two. But let's watch something that isn't French before that to give me a break. Let's watch something crass and American.
All right. Well, you get the next choice. But so I suppose we have a divided opinion here. But I would really kind of recommend it. It is to me like a really kind of a beautiful film. Certainly, if you're a fan of Melville in any way, it's a must-see film. I think if you're a fan of gangster pictures or of Tarantino, it's a film that will enhance your understanding of all of those categories. So, thank you very much for listening. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.